Hello dear friends, in this video I'm going to show you something that you may not know about the Gupta ring. Many believe that the Gupta ring is an indigenous replica of the Malyugin ring. In fact, it is not, and knowing this crucial difference will help us to insert it in a better fashion. The Malyugin ring comes in a different inserter and injector system. It's made of 4-0 and the modern ones of 5-0 polypropylene. The scrolls are much wider, and the most significant part of it is that the 4 limbs lie partly beneath the iris plane and partly above it. Now, because of this kind of engagement, there are 8 points at which the pupil is stretched and dilated, giving you almost a round pupillary configuration, which is an exclusive feature. Now let's move to the Gupta ring. It's probably made of a polyamide material. It also has 4 loops, but unlike the Malyugin ring, 2 of these loops that are opposite to each other lie at a higher plane and the other 2 at a lower plane. This is the way the scrolls are arranged. Now, because of this construct of the Gupta ring, it is possible for us to insert the ring in such a way that the limb that lies beneath the iris plane actually lies adjacent the incision, and the limb that lies above the iris plane lies at right angles to the incision. This will aid us in better introduction of the phacoprobe into the eye as well as the coaxial IA. The Gupta ring is a much thinner device and it will expand the pupil in a square type of configuration. There is also a joint which is seen on one end which links up the limb. So once inserted into the eye, you get a square configuration of pupil dilation. 2 of the limbs are above the iris plane and 2 beneath the iris plane. So in this particular case, when I'm injecting the Gupta ring, and as soon as the scroll engages the pupil, you will see that one part of the limb is lying above, the other part is lying beneath the iris plane or the pupillary plane. Now in this particular case, the left limb is lying above the iris plane. Therefore this limb is lying just opposite the incision. So in this case, I am just concentrating on inserting the ring. I am not worried about the orientation of the limbs. As soon as I get the Gupta ring into place, I find that the 2 limbs that are above the iris plane as well as the scroll is just underneath the edge of the incision, and therefore while inserting the phacoprobe, I find that it is actually difficult to do so. It hitches and sometimes it can even dislocate the ring. Now in this particular case, I am trying to rotate the ring, but remember that when the ring has been applied and the pupil is stretched, it is very difficult to rotate the ring. In fact, the ring just slips back to the original position in an elastic fashion. I got by in this case with a little amount of viscoelastic, but there is always a risk. Now let us look at this particular case where I changed the orientation of implantation of the Gupta ring. In this case, I do not engage any of the loops. The entire ring is inserted into the eye. Well, the ring flips in this case, but it really doesn't matter because the configuration basically does not change. As soon as I engage one of the loop, I see that the limb that lies above the iris plane is lying just opposite the incision. So I dislocate this loop. I rotate the free ring in the anterior chamber. I bring it to an orientation such that when I implant this scroll to engage the pupillary margin, the portion of the limb that lies above the iris plane will be at right angles to the incision. So this is the way I engage it. So this portion of the Gupta ring or this limb of the Gupta ring is lying above the iris plane. Remember that opposite limbs will be in the same orientation. So when the final scroll is tucked beneath the pupillary edge, I have a type of configuration where the limbs lying above the iris plane is at right angles and the limbs lying beneath the iris plane is adjacent the incision site. Now this is a nice way to implant the Gupta ring because it will not interfere with the introduction of the phacoprobe into the eye. I thank you for your attention.